You are listening to a White Phosphorus Pictures podcast.
Broadcasting under the night sky from the edge of an undisclosed jungle on the Gulf of Mexico, I'm Christopher Garitano, your voice in the night. For the next hour, allow me to be your guide into the bizarre unknown, the fantastic macabre, and together we'll journey to that borderland between fiction and reality, a place beyond all rational explanation. We are now off to the witch.
There is a fifth dimension, beyond that which is known to man. It is a dimension as vast as space and as timeless as infinity. It is the middle ground between light and shadow, between science and superstition, and it lies between the pit of man's fears and the summit of his knowledge. This is the dimension of imagination. It is an area which we call the Twilight Zone.
That was Rod Serling's show open to his immortal television series, The Twilight Zone. Mr. Serling lived an extraordinary life well before he typed a word for the teleplays of his greatest episodes. It was a life first raised in small-town charm, the end of innocence and brutal combat, the struggles of the working man, and the distrust of dictators and politicians' clothing. His show was the epitome of good storytelling, with a subtext stronger and more profound than its genres. At the moment, our existence is seemingly merging with the themes above and below the surface of the Twilight Zone. We'll hear a collection of tales after this commercial break.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
You are listening to the Off to the Witch podcast, where we explore that bizarre borderline between fiction and reality and all subjects arcane. Journey over to my YouTube channel and subscribe now at youtube.com/@offtothewitch for a variety of extras and special features, including the Off to the Witch mini docs with further insights on many of the latest episodes, as well as previews and behind the scenes of my forthcoming investigative series, Off to the Witch Presents, as well as the anniversary edition of my motion picture documentary, Montauk Chronicles. And follow us on social media. All links are available at linktree.com/Garitano7, GARETANO7, and stay tuned for more Off to the Witch.
John Landis, American Werewolf in London. Steven Spielberg, E.T. Joe Dante, The Howling. George Miller, Mad Max. These acclaimed directors take you to another dimension. A journey into a wondrous land whose only boundaries are your imagination. Next stop, the Twilight Zone.
Welcome back to Off to the Witch. I'm your host, Christopher Garitano, and our first story is from a man, Keith IMC. He grew up within his Native American tribe, Pawnee and Seminole ancestry, not only learning history and folklore through tribal stories and practices of elders, but in several cases he experienced the unknown firsthand.
some years back, we were out on our land, our Indian land that we have, family land. It was me, my son, and two of my cousins. And I wanted to take them out to the land so they could see it, walk around. Beautiful, beautiful, large field. Field is surrounded by these nice tree lines of a lot of blackjack, some oak, and just a beautiful place during that time of year. And it was about 5:30, in the early evening. And as we were walking, there was just a peaceful feeling that I remember feeling, really calm. And as we were making our way through the field, I took them to this certain area of the land. Now, mind you, this is about 390 acres, 380 acres of land that we have out there. And as we were walking to this one area, it's where the two tree lines meet. And so there's a little road that kind of cuts through. And I said, let's walk over here. I want to show you the other part of this land. And mind you, a lot of times some of my cousins, they'd be like, man, when you go out there, you got to make sure you take a gun because there's a lot of wild hogs and mountain lions. But that day, we didn't have anything and we were just cruising through, no worries, enjoying the beautiful day. And so as we got to that opening into the next field of land, I looked to my left and I heard this kind of splashing, crackling noise. And I said, what is that? And I looked, and right then, with my own eyes, I see this thing, and it hits the ground so hard. And I remember hearing this splash. And then all of a sudden I looked and my heart just dropped because I thought, oh no, what is that? This thing was huge. And it must have been maybe, I would say, 50 feet, maybe 60 feet from me in the trees. And from the tree line to where it was maybe 25 feet. And I look at this thing and it gets up and its body was so massive. And right then it just takes off. It was almost what's strange about it, it was like we snuck up on it. And I thought, how are we able to sneak up on this thing so close and we're talking? You can't even sneak up on a deer like that in the woods when you're actually having full conversations. So this thing got up and I remember I saw the back of it. And it was like a burnt orange. And you could see hair on it. And this thing took off. And all of a sudden my son stopped, my cousin stopped. And I remember whenever it took off, it was gone in about 5 steps. But the interesting part about it was whenever it was running, the only way I can explain to the way it felt, when it ran, it sounded like this. And it was gone. But whenever each step hit the ground, it reminded me of like when you're in a weight room and you drop like a 50-pound dumbbell on the ground, but more than that. But the interesting thing about it was the noise that it made. And I asked my cousins, my uncles, who are always out in the woods, if they've ever heard this before, even other hunters, and none of them have ever heard this noise made by anything that massive. And the noise that it made as it was running, it goes, bark, 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 bark. And I thought, in my head, the first thought was, is that a giant chicken? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's what it sounded like.
Yeah, it sounded like a giant chicken. And I was like, what the hell is making that noise, running that fast and that massive? But it's interesting because, we've heard stories, and I've also seen videos, that the Bigfoot, Pita Dadus, can mimic voices, can mimic human voices, animal voices. And that was the only thing that made sense whenever it made that noise. But this thing was huge. This thing was massive. And honestly, I couldn't believe that I was actually witnessing it, with my own eyes. I've had friends, that I visited with that had told me their stories where they saw Bigfoot. with their own eyes. And I always thought, man, that's amazing. But the interesting part about it was whenever we saw this together, because we all witnessed it together, all four of us, was that like this is real. This is real. And the thing just was gone like that. And like it just vanished. Like it just ran 5 steps, massive steps, and was gone. And that's the pretty remarkable thing about it. Like to be able to see that. But I thought about it and I'm like, man, there's something special about this land. And there's something special about certain places on the land that that we know about where they are, and certain beings are around those locations. And so that was whenever we saw that together. And that wasn't the only time that we've had an experience in that area, but that was the one time where I was able to witness one that close in the middle of the day.
What was the perspective of you growing up from your family and from people around you at that time, as opposed to the one where, I mean, I think it's somewhat similar because you're seeing this thing and it's out in the shadows, but wasn't it part of the culture?
Yeah, these things are all a part of the culture. They're normalized within the culture. But the thing about it is, no matter how normalized it is, when you experience it and you see it, it's almost like you're seeing it for the first time. Like I've seen so many things in my life, spiritual, supernatural things that I've witnessed with my own eyes, that every time I witness something, it's almost like I'm seeing it for the first time. And I think that's the teaching in it. It just reminds us how powerful and how supernatural and beautiful this world is, and how scary it can be, to keep you on your toes, to keep you ready, you know? And so for me, I could see something tonight. I could have a vision tonight, tomorrow, and it could be equally as powerful as one that I had, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. And so that's the exciting part about the supernatural, that it keeps you alert. It keeps you reminded that there is a place that we live here on this earth, and then there's another place that is equally powerful and equally present on this earth as well. And to get a glimpse of that each time is remarkable.
Back in your childhood, what was the most profound supernatural experience that you had before even seeing the Bigfoot or anything else? What was it that, because I'm sure you had heard stories first, right? What was it that, followed by the stories that you heard from family members, that really charged this perspective and opened your mind to that world?
Me personally, I've when I was a child, even later on in life, seen and experienced a lot of things that were all very profound and powerful, like equally. Um, I could probably go down the line and tell you so many stories, but I guess maybe probably the earliest one, that I remember, um, when I was maybe probably 3 years old. Um, I remember I was asleep, and my mom and dad, they were both sleeping on each side of me. And I remember that night I couldn't sleep that night. And I can't remember what side my mom or my dad was on next to me, but I remember I kicked the covers off. And I think I had to have been probably 3 years old, because I've dated it back to when I remember this happened. And I remember I couldn't sleep. It was hot, but I remember always hearing stories about the house that we were sleeping in. It was an old house, but it was built on top of an older house. And in that particular room that I was in, I remember hearing stories about it. And I remember there being like these old toys that were in the closet. And the closet was at the end of the bed. But that night, I remember specifically feeling like something was like watching me. You hear it all the time. Something was watching me. I felt eyes on me. So I remember I was hot and I couldn't sleep. And I remember I turned, and I remember I was laying there. And all of a sudden I heard something, like at the end of the bed, kind of coming from the closet. And right then I don't really recall if it were hands, but I felt like a force, something like grabbed or was around my ankles. And it felt like two forces around my ankles, and literally just pulled me to the end of the bed. Clear as day, I remember this. Pulled me to the end of the bed fast. And I just slide off the bed like, and I go flying into the closet. I remember I landed in the closet on top of the toys. And when I hit the toys, it made this loud noise. And I remember when I hit the toys, I just kicked. I was kicking. And I pushed my body from the closet wall back to the edge of the bottom of the bed. And I was screaming. Like, ah! Started screaming for my mom. My mom jumped up. My dad jumped up. She was like, "What's wrong? What happened? What are you doing? What are you doing?" And I was just right there at the end of the bed, like, crying. My mom grabbed me, picked me up, put me back on the bed. And I remember that, I remember something literally grabbed my ankles and just pulled me all the way into the closet. And clear as day, I would say that was probably the first time that, something, came through and tried to, you know, take me. Wherever they were trying to take me, it was somewhere else, beyond that closet door. And I remember it clear as day. And that was probably the first time that I was actually, I would say, bothered, or you know, um, attacked by something that may have been sinister. And that's probably the earliest one that I remember in regards to something reaching out and grabbing me.
I think you had a shared experience with some other people. I've had a few people along the way tell me a very similar experience of something trying to drag them to another place in the bedroom when they were kids. And what do you think that was?
You know, after years of thinking about it, I don't know if it was maybe an old spirit ghost, of the family that was trying to scare me, or, if it was something that was trying to take me, take me somewhere else. And and but because we have stories of there's these certain beings that try to take kids, off into the woods, in the middle of the night. And a lot of times those kids they don't return for a few days, or they'll find those kids, sitting on a log in the middle of the woods, dazed and confused. So I don't, I'm not really sure, I'm not really sure, but I do know whatever it was, it wasn't a soft little gentle tug. It was like, a very aggressive, like I went flying off the bed.
Our next story is of a woman named Tamra Glenn. She played a lead character, Samantha Baker, in the popular horror film Halloween 5. In the movie, she eventually perishes by the hands of the epitome of pure evil, Michael Myers. But as fandom grew over the years for her appearance in the film, she was stalked by the envious eyes of a real-life maniac.
So I had a fan that approached me like I want to say 8 years ago. And he presented himself to be a disabled veteran who could not drive. He was a huge fan of Halloween. Okay, I'm right there with you. I'm a huge fan of Halloween as well. And I disengaged my boundaries. That's on me. And, then the shitstorm started. And oh, what a day. It I was being I was being very kind. I mean, he's telling me he's a disabled veteran. He cannot drive, you know, and he felt so like amazing and so like euphoric connecting with me personally. I think while still seeing my character in his head being a little bit of disillusioned. And I want to what we're about to talk about. I am not a licensed psychiatrist, psychologist, therapist. I am only speaking legally from my own words, my own value and moral system. My only experiences with someone that went crazy on me.
I'd love to hear it from your perspective. You don't necessarily have to diagnose the guy, but definitely want to hear what you think.
So it's very interesting. This was, 6 to 8 years of multiple, there's over 80,000 messages from one fan. He had bought everything from me that you could possibly buy. Um, and I felt so sorry for him because he portrayed himself to be disabled. He had health conditions and he could not drive. So he would say, Tamara, if I send you $20 or $40, can you go out and buy my mom something and ship it to Miami for me so I can honor my mom? So, my mom passed February 4th, 2013. And I'm like, oh my God, it's amazing. Anyone that chooses to honor their moms, sure. And you're disabled, you have, health conditions, and you can't drive. Abso-freaking-lutely, I'm going to be there to support you. So, what all of that turned out to be in retrospect was, and there are some things I can say, and there's a lot I cannot talk about because it's an ongoing investigation. But was I being catfished? Is this person really who he said he was? Was he portraying himself to me as being disabled? Yes. It was a freaking nightmare.
Did
Um,
he ever show up at a
no, no,
convention?
this
Okay.
person was not a convention goer. Therefore, it is so hard to gauge. There's nobody, you are encapsulated in your own fucking brain. Like, no one has ever had contact with this freaking individual. No one has ever witnessed him, seen him, heard from him, nothing. He lives with his mother. He is not a child. He in his late 40s, early 50s. And yes, and what a freaking nightmare being nice turned into be.
So you had mentioned catfish. Was it ever confirmed that he actually lives with his mother, or he's who he says he is? Like, have you seen any evidence of that? Have they ever called you? Has he put his mother on the phone?
That is still under investigation because you know um, the laws are so protective. And one thing that I will say about Governor DeSantis in Florida is that he does have, his harassment and cyberbullying laws are very, they're stern. And I believe all states should join forces. And because, my life was made a living hell. And you don't know who the other person is that they're conveying themselves to be, that they're representing themselves to be. When you're messaging me 50 to 100 times a day, and I'm begging you to back off, when I finally say, back the fuck off, leave me alone, and then I go in and I block, and then the barrage of emails come. I'm a bitch. Everything is because of me. Me. And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute.
Wow.
Number one, no, we're not going to play this game in society any longer of you can come into my life, you can, emotionally try and destroy me, but then you're over there and I push back and you claim victim. Bullshit. Game over.
Sure, and it seems that they are finding people who have attention and are worried about damaging their reputation by lashing out.
But this is what's sad is that now society is so compartmentalized. It's be a part, claim this and go join this organization or claim this and go join that. And then what is left for the people like me and the millions of us that are just like living our daily lives, trying to work, make a living, pay our bills? when does the harassment stop? When do the laws come so into place where they say knock it off? Enough is enough. Because
Sure.
I went through hell with this individual. I was so able to send, all the detectives on this case. I did threaten a restraining order like in 2020. I did threaten. I'm like, you are sending me so many messages a day. I'm going to start charging you. I did.
And the creepy part about this, Tamara, is that he's listening to this show on premiere night or whenever. He can hear you, because the obsession is so strong that he's watching your every move. It's like that Police song, "Every Breath You Take." People think it's a love song. It's not. It's
No,
about a stalker.
stalker. No.
So,
So,
and I don't mean, and again, this is such a serious thing. I've actually experienced this myself. I'm not going to talk about details. This is your story, but I know how you feel, and I'm trying to treat it sensitively and also get the details of the story. Now, he did fixate on the fact that you played Samantha in Halloween 5, because
yes,
didn't he refer to you of your character's name, correct?
yes, yes. It was, hey, Sammy, I love you. I want to kiss you. You're my BFF. And I want to tell you this. I want to state this in all honesty. I am all about the fans. Lord knows I am all about the fans. The promoters know, my agents know, my peers know I'm all about the fans. But there does come a point in time where, you know, yeah. And I think, what has happened in society with social media and everybody trying to get the attention grabbers, the attention, the likes, is because where I currently live, I'm just gonna give you a little snippet of my life. I'm very private. A lot of people, I don't tell them that I am who I am. I tell them I'm in advertising and marketing. I do not project my career on anyone. Um, that's how I've had to tighten the reins. And that's for my own safety. That's for my own emotional well being. But what's sad about my situation, when you draw the line in the sand for all these years, 7, 8 years, and you go, stop doing this. Please stop. Okay, I'm going to send you a cease and desist. Okay, I'm going to get my attorney. Okay, I'm going to call the cops. Okay, I'm talking to Homeland Security. I'm talking to the FBI. I'm talking to this. I mean, when they keep coming at you, there is a fucking issue. And I've had to learn to stay off social media. I cannot help. I used to try and save people, but because of the way the world is now, social media, and that's just, my God, it's doing more harm than good. Um, when you say you're a best friend, when you're posting pics that I've sent that to fans, when it's just, there is a very fine line there. And I'm going to be an advocate for being proactive and being safe.
First, I want to say that I know that this has not been easy in any sense of the word, and it's happening still right now. And you're also being very cautious about it ever happening again, because this film is going to continue long after you're here. People are going to be watching it. But while you're here, there will be people that fixate on your moment in cinema in this movie. And so you learned something from this situation. And not to sensationalize this episode any more than it needs to be, but because a lot of it's about your life, but we had to talk about this because it's really important. And I mean, if you were to say something to this guy right now without screaming, what would you say if there's any sense that can be talked to this person? And then I want to get into what I think personally could be changed, because again, I've had my own horrible experience with this. What could you say to this person right now? Because he's listening to you. He's listening to this episode. What would you say to him right now to get through to him?
So a few weeks ago, my little spiritual sister flew up here from Austin, Texas, because I was in outreach. I was crying. I was in the floor in fetal position going, "Oh my God. This has been going on for years, and he's gonna fucking kill me." And you know, God,
But he's directly threatened to kill you, correct?
I cannot repeat due to legalities.
Okay, I
I think
understand.
that, right. I know that you have a copy of the Prelude. Um, you know, number one, I just want to state I'm embarrassed by this whole thing. I'm a good person that someone out there took huge advantage of my time and my emotional well-being. Um, it got so bad to where the mention of guns, um, it got so bad, Christopher, to where after the police department in his town had handcuffed him and strongly, hardly said, "Leave her the F alone," he continued. He continued that emails. And so while my friend was here, my little soul sister was here, we're sitting here watching TV comedy. She came up to like protect me and just be with me in my own space and help me through this spiritually and physically. Um, my Gmail account starts going off. Ding, 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 ding. And I'm like, check it and see if it's him. And she checked it and she's like, "It's him." And you know what? I said, "Give me my freaking phone now, now." And I sent him an email back and I'm like, "Okay, we're going to talk." And he emailed me right back like, "Really?" And I'm like, "Fuck yes, we are going to talk." And he's like, I'm like, "Call me." At this point, Christopher, I don't care. I don't care. Call me. We're gonna fucking set the record straight. I've been in fetal position, night terrors, shaking uncontrollably. My blood pressure is sky high. Yeah. So I ended up calling him. And he's like, "Hey, Tamara." And I'm like, I screamed. I'm like, "What the fuck are you doing? Do you realize what you have done to my life?" I can't even get to any kind of like normal messages on Messenger because of your messages inundating everything I fucking do. I can't sleep. You have made me your slave. You have set me up.
Do you think that was his goal? Was to
Yes,
get
I do.
Okay. So
Absolutely. It premeditated? Absolutely. And there are audio clips and video clips of my conversation with him. And all of this now is in my prosecuting attorney's office. And um, he admitted that he went batshit crazy out of anger on me. And that's really scary.
but there's enough to support the need for protection from the authorities. Okay. And
And that's all I can say. But it was really weird. The detective on the case, she called me about 4 or 5 nights ago now, and we talked for 2 hours. And she's like, "Are y'all really safe out there?" She's like, and she brought up Christina Grimmie, the boys contestant who was, on Adam Levine's team.
yes.
She came in third overall and then was in Orlando. And
This was the show The Voice,
right,
correct?
right, right, right. And so what we have to look at is, where are people in there? Are they contacting with others socially? Or where is their mindset? her obsessor had given, like, there's always warnings, but it's like, how far are they willing to go? And when you're out on the convention circuit like I am, as well as my other actor friends, what do? You want to be up close and personal, and there's never been, I mean, I've never had an issue on any level at a convention. The worst thing I've ever had as a Terrifier hoodie being stolen. That's my worst experience. But
So from the time that you were acting throughout the convention circuit, all of that, you really lucked out because you really didn't have too many problems with anybody. You had good people in your corner, you had good management, you had your mother, and so it's not really until this character came into your life, whoever he is really and I wish I could solve this problem for you right now. I think we need stronger laws, number one, and they need to be enforced immediately. There should be no cyber bullying, stalking, none of that. That should be highly illegal. End of story. People threatening to ruin your reputation with lies, all of this stuff, right?
right,
So so so
they
where did it Okay, hold on one second. So where did it go after he was reported, after he was handcuffed, after you talked to him again and told
he
him the
didn't
reason,
stop.
and he's still going?
He was still going, and I mean, I'm leaving for a doctor's appointment on a Friday at 2 o'clock, and the PayPal's start coming in, and he's sending me $5 gift increments, special gift for Tam, and all this stuff. And I just want to say this, and I'm working on getting involved with trafficking and awareness, and catfishing, and the internet is not safe, and you really, really, really have to do your research as to who you are coming into contact with. I mean, I was so naive and, I guess, vulnerable and stupid, where I just really wanted to help somebody. I felt like that was my calling with God and the universe, and I've got a mind and I can help somebody. I feel good about the fact that he can send me 20, 40, $50 and I can go and, like, help this person. That's my mission. It's like doing missions work, and I still can't wrap my head around, how can I go from helping fans to someone freaking blowing up on me, threatening me, and him blaming all of this ridiculous. I got blamed for Miami PD putting him in handcuffs. I got blamed for everything. And I'm like, I told you years ago, you had to back off of me.
Abe Sias dedicated his life to serving the United States Army in several combat missions. But after odd experiences and dark visions occurred, he knew something both sinister and supernatural was at play.
I was stationed, I got stationed in Fort Hood, Texas, and I started noticing activity there where, like I said, they were getting rid of a lot of soldiers. They were downsizing the military. Uh, people, I still had this drill sergeants. There were extra sergeants coming after me that didn't like me. It's kind of like they stayed in contact with each other. That's the government. They know who you are. They know where you're coming from. So through counseling statements, right? If somebody writes a bad counseling statement, they know, or somebody say, hey, take care of this guy a certain way, and they send it to the next platoon sergeant, right? They're gonna target you to, if somebody how should I say, labels you as a bad person, they're gonna come at you aggressively. And I believe that's what was happening to me, where there was ex-drill sergeants that were E7s coming after me. I remember when I got promoted, uh this E7, it didn't like, it used to be my platoon sergeant here in on Fort Hood, and he had left to work at the division, the First Cavalry Division. When I got promoted to NCO to E5, I heard a knock on my door like around 11:30 at night, and it's him. And I let him in. He closed the door, and he told me that they promote anybody nowadays. And then I looked at him and I said, "Yeah, they do." And then he said that he was there to beat me up. Right? He was there to beat me up. I said, "Well, lock the door behind you. I'll let you take off your top. We'll go with no rank, and we'll see what happens." He looked at me. He never took off his shirt. He unlocked the door. He didn't even try to lock the door. He opened the door and walked out. But yeah, they kept on coming after me. That's when my career only lasted 10 years, because uh, they didn't want to promote me more than a NCO. And then I started having, of course, from placing my body on the line. I'll give you an example. I was we're doing live gunnery in Clabber Creek, which is 4 tanks going down range shooting targets, which will look pretty awesome, right? Where all the tanks are shooting. So we're going down range, hitting the targets, and like I said, I follow my senses, and something told me to duck, right? So I was a loader at the time, so I went with my instincts and I ducked, and I heard something out there. When I looked up, because when you go down range, you have a green flag when when you're not ready, but when you put a red flag, that means you're recon one, that you're ready to go, that all weapons are locked and loaded. Or the flag had 3 bullet holes in it, where one of the tanks, uh, the gunner from one of the tanks to our left shot at me. There's no way that you can make a mistake like that. No way at all. He literally tried to kill me. So after that, I confronted him, and I had it with him. I picked him up, I body slammed him, and I grabbed him from the throat. And I told him, who put you up to it? Who put you up to try to take me out? He wouldn't say nothing to me, but he literally tried to kill me, and I had the flag with the 3 bullet holes to prove it. There's no way somebody can make a mistake like that. Not with the kind of not with the kind of equipment that we have, that we can tell our friends from enemy. He intentionally did that, try to take me out.
And looking back in hindsight, what do you think this was all about? Why were they consistently either trying to fight you or eliminate you?
Well, brother, I started noticing other things besides that, of people actually coming at me. What I started witnessing, I'll give you a story. I had got in, I had been in an accident in California where I hit my head, and because of that, throughout the years, I noticed something not right with me while I was blacking out, passing out. Uh, they had diagnosed me with epilepsy, from the blow to the head that I had in an accident in Fort Ord, California. But what I witnessed out there was, when I first got my first seizure, right? A seizure, for anybody that doesn't know, is biblically they're saying when you have a seizure, that means you're being demonically attacked, right? That's what it means. Form of possession. So I'm up there in the medical tent. They're saying that the chaplain of Fort Hood is going to come talk to me. So they say the chaplain of Fort Hood is here. There's this gentleman that walks in, and he looks at me, and he just smiles at me, and he says, "Do you believe in demonic possession?" And I'm looking at him, and I said, "I've heard of things like that." And then he said, "Has any of your family members ever been demonically attacked?" And he starts smiling, and then he says, "How about your grandfather?" And I didn't say nothing to him, but I knew something happened, something in that nature to my grandfather. But in my mind, I was like, how does he know this? It's something that only I know. So I said, let's pray. He said, let's pray. So he grabbed my hands, and we start praying. But the thing is, when he started praying, I don't understand what he's saying. He's not saying nothing in English or Spanish. He's talking a whole different dialect. So when he's talking this different dialect, we're holding hands. I start saying the Our Father. When I start saying the Our Father, he tries to let go of my hands. I'm not letting go, and I'm saying the Our Father, and he lets go and takes off out of the tent real fast. So I go sit down back in my cot, and it's like that was a kind of a strange meeting with the chaplain of Fort Hood. That was strange. So what would he say those things to me, right? So as I'm sitting there, then I hear the chaplain of Fort Hood is here, which means the chaplain of Fort Hood is the main guy, the main chaplain of Fort Hood. So then this other guy comes in and he said he's the main chaplain of Fort Hood. Like I told him the main chaplain of Fort Hood already just barely see me. He said, no, I'm the main chaplain of Fort Hood. So it's like we just talked and he really didn't pray for me. He just said, how you doing? I was telling him I was feeling a little bit better and all that. And he just walked out. So that's when I started noticing other things. For example, was it a soldier or was it something infiltrating to be a soldier within the ranks? And to me, I would, to me, my first thoughts of it was a demon in disguise as the chaplain because the things that he told me only I knew, nobody knew, and it was something that happened to me, something that happened to my grandfather when I was like 5, 6 years old. Something that happened to him. That's when I started noticing some weird things within the ranks of the military, where those other forces, uh, demonic forces, working within the ranks of the military, or you could say the degen or whatever. But that's when I started really preparing myself when I would go out there because I had already faced the physical aspect of things, when you're trying to figure out why these people coming after me, then there's whatever demonic being takes form to look like a chaplain. It's not even the right person to tell you things that only you know. It's kind of like it's like everything starts playing out by itself and the puzzle starts forming. But I believe that the government wants to get the super soldier by any means necessary. And those any means necessary, just like Hitler was through necromancy and witchcraft, that's the things that he would do. I believe it's all affiliated in some kind of way or the other in that nature.
There are a lot of reasons to believe that, for sure, especially with all of this coming to a head now, right in front of our eyes. Everything that's happened to us, even in the last 3 years, that we can see that, you know, I feel like all of these experiments over time obviously haven't ended, number one. Number two, um, that that a lot of them that they prepared for to put upon the people, the populace, even
Yes,
non-military people, right? That I
yes.
think it's all coming into play now. Now, my question is, you feel ultimately all of this, there's much more to it, and there's actually a spiritual war going on.
Yes.
Okay. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? About how you feel about it and what you truly believe in terms of you're somebody that's really experienced all of this stuff.
Oh, yes. Because just like the the Badingo fights and the all this fighting that I've done throughout my life, when I was in the military, it continued in a different manner. I mean, the spiritual side of things. What happened to me in Elms Grove in Killeen, Texas, where Fort Hood base is after the military, where I had moved into this mobile home park, and my son was playing on the swing on the sliding swings with a friend, and I was showing the friend how the park had a park within the park, and you had a swimming pool and all this, and that I like the area. Next thing you know, I cannot hear my son playing on the swing set, so I go looking for him. I can't find him, nor she can find her daughter. We go back home to see if they're at the house playing video games. They're not there. My sister says she hasn't seen them. So then we go back to the park and we're searching everywhere. We can't find them. So they start calling the police, and the sun's already setting, and I'm looking for him, and I managed to see the top of my son's head in the woods, like there's just the hair, a little bit of the hair. And I ran to them, and when I got to them, they were just standing side by side, like in a trance-like state, right? So as they were standing side by side in a trance-like state, I was trying to get their attention. They wouldn't respond to me for a while, till finally they both responded, and they said this at the same time. They said that the man in black called them to the woods. So I yelled for my sister and my friend. They came and grabbed him and took him home. You know, I'm a prior military. I went searching for this man in black. You know, whether it was an African American or a person dressed in black. I went searching all throughout the wood, through the creek, through the highway, and I didn't find nobody that was either dressed in black or an African American. You know, so that's when the all the other things of the spiritual battle started happening, brother. You know, could it be that they still have a signal up in the air just to try to affect maybe the blow that I had in California? You know, might have broken something that wasn't able to lock down the signal on me. I don't know, to make me, you know, so many fights that I got into. You know, I did have some blows to the head, because like, and after the war, before I came back to the States, they sent me to, I forgot to tell you this, they sent me to Birch's Garden, the platoon Birch's Garden, and I got jumped by like 20 people, 20 American soldiers out there. They got all around me, and they hit me in the back of the head. So if there was a signal or something on me, you know, from so many blows, it must have broken or something, right? So the signal wouldn't be able to connect to me. But they had it on lockdown because they came at me, you know. So I feel that I was targeted even then.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
There are those who say that this quiet town holds many secrets. Legend has it that beneath this very tower, a dark force had its eyes set on the children.
We were told that what was going on there was for the benefit of humanity.
What would you say to the people who say, well, all these children were kidnapped and murdered and you were a part of it? What would you tell them?
I did approve of it, but there was nothing I could do about it.
They wanted a large number of programmed boys to be used for mind control operations.
And there are others who say it's still happening to this day.
I don't know, I for myself find it a little suspicious that all the evidence has been conveniently destroyed.
Let's put it this way. If you're sitting there with 20 guns pointed at you, what are you going to do? Whatever the hell they want!
Watch Montauk Chronicles now for free on Tubi, Plex, Roku, and available for download on Amazon and Apple TV.
This series presents information based in part on theory and conjecture. The producer's purpose is to suggest some possible explanations, but not necessarily the only ones, to the mysteries we will examine.
Paul Richard Price claims that when he was a young boy, he was not only visited by strange beings from outer space, but it was also their intent to harness his unique abilities.
Well, back in 1978, and ours happened before the Castellandrum incident, where two women, and I forget their first names, and one of the woman's grandsons, I should say grandson, were driving down the road, back road in Conroe, and they saw what looked like a triangular shaped object, or a diamond shaped object. Forgive me. But the thing is that it was glowing really bright, and they pulled over to get a better look. And the little boy jumped out of the car. His grandmother went with him, and the other lady stayed in the car. But they noticed that they were getting burns, and that and it was dropping slag or whatever, if I'm correct, off of the vehicle and onto the ground, and that the heat was so intense that it started melting the plastic inside their car and the tires.
Wow.
And they were taken to the hospital soon after that with radiation poisoning. They sued the U.S. government, and the case got tossed out of court. But my incident, or my family's incident, happened 3 months prior to that. And we were on our way home from church that night. It was a Sunday night. And it was just that it was not necessarily at evening, but it was at dawn or at dusk, right there, right before it turned evening. And I saw what looked to me originally as a big orb in the sky that I thought was the moon. But then I started looking at it, and there were no features. It was just plain white. As soon as I started noticing that and pointing it out to my siblings and my father, the thing started zigzagging back and forth. And then as we were getting closer to the house, it changed colors from white to a yellowish color, to a blue color, to a yellowish color, and then to a fiery red as it settled about 15 to 20 feet above the roof of the trailer house we lived in. Well,
when you were seeing this, were you aware of UFOs at that time? Were you experiencing anything on television or in movies that have already kind of solidified that in your imagination?
That's a good question, and I used to read up on UFOs. I was a big space cadet. When I was younger, I wanted to be an astronaut. And, even fringe science interested me. And I knew about UFOs, read books on them.
So when this was happening in the heat of the moment, did it occur to you at this point that this was a UFO, this thing that was hovering above your house?
Well, yeah, it did. And then here's another strange part about that. Is that I kept seeing kind of flash visions inside the trailer house of these little beings chasing my family back and forth.
Wow, what did they look like?
Typical gray aliens. But they didn't bother me, but they actually went after my father and my siblings and my stepmother. Why they didn't go after me is something I still don't have an answer for. They went after everybody else but me.
What happened when they approached your family? What were they doing?
They were trying to lead my siblings off outside. They'd ran inside the trailer, and then they tried to lure them outside. My dad happened to be outside staring at that thing, and I came inside because with all the stories I've read about alien abductions, even when I was a kid, the Betty and Barney Hill story and all.
Oh, yes.
I then realized that this is a potential abduction scenario, and I was roughly about 11 years old, 10 or 11 at that time. And I realized at that point in time, Chris, that we may be looking at a potential abduction.
You must have been terrified.
Honestly, I wasn't. That kind of thing never scared me. But at the time, I'm a meta-genius. I have had my IQ tested between 163 and 200. So,
oh boy,
I've looked at these things, and I had a background or baseline knowledge as to what was going on. And all I did is I said, I will not fear. I will not cave into my fear. I will go ahead and I will tell them if they try to come after me, basically to get the heck out of here and leave me alone.
Was your family terrified of what was happening?
The ironic part is they don't remember. My dad cannot recollect what, if anything. Their memories were wiped, and I remember it like it was yesterday.
So you were 11 years old. This incredible experience was shared amongst you and your family. What was the height of the experience? So you're in the trailer house. The ship is hovering above the house. Your father's outside. Family's inside. And now these beings are in with you. What happened next?
The thing actually, they disappeared. The thing actually flew up vertically and disappeared. I mean, it just shot up and then bam, it was gone.
So there was some kind, it was almost a chaotic situation, no? Because you had all of this activity happening. Did it feel like time slowed down while all of this? I mean, in your memory, how do you see it? Because you're inside the house. These beings are in with you, and they're approaching your family.
They were shifting in and out of dimensional space.
Okay.
I could see them, but it was like a ghost image, if you know what I'm talking about.
I can imagine.
Okay. While they were interacting with my siblings and my stepmother and my dad.
What were they doing? What were the beings doing with your family?
Well, they were trying to drag them outside, but every time I would see them try to drag them out, they would, simultaneously disappear and then reappear again.
Wow.
Still trying to take them outside. And it was like I was there but not there, if you know what I'm talking about.
Sure. I mean, would it be the equivalent to almost being sedated in a way, or a dreamlike experience?
No, I was fully cognizant as to what was going on. But there was shifting in that time, shifting between parallel dimensional space.
And did you understand that was happening when you were 11, or it's looking back in hindsight that now you can identify?
No, I understood that back when I was 11.
Oh, okay. Wow. That's amazing. And so the night ends, the ship abruptly disappears. What happened the next day? Or even further in that night? Do you remember what happened after?
I went to bed, and when I went to bed, my brother and I shared a bed, and so did my sisters. And went to sleep. The next morning we got up, and pretty much it was like nothing happened,
Did you try to discuss this with anybody in the family the next day, or anyone else?
Yeah, I did.
Can you tell me about that?
My siblings remembered it at the time. They made a comment. They go, what was that big red ball?
And how old were your siblings at the time? Were they younger or older? Or
I had
both?
2 older sisters. One was born in 64. The other one was born in 65. I was born in 68. My younger brother was born in 70. And in 72, my youngest sister.
So your older sisters were in their teens at that time.
Correct.
And did they remembered what happened?
Well, I know that my sister Teresa remembers, and I do believe Jackie, my oldest sister, remembered. My younger siblings, Robert or Bobby and Melissa, I do not believe that they knew or remembered what happened because they were quite young at that time, 7 and 8. But my dad, strangely enough, doesn't remember what happened.
But he believes that it happened?
Well, he won't say that it does or doesn't because he doesn't remember.
Dex Skarsvåg claims to have been visited by dark entities since he was a child. After encountering whispering spirits reaching out for him in the night and the appearance of strange children with black eyes, Dex realized that perhaps he has a gift of sight that many wouldn't dare to look with.
Let's see, we moved to Buckley or Bonnie Lake, I can't remember for sure. That it was like two towns that were right next to each other. There were weird noises a lot at night in the house, but I don't think I ever actually saw anything specific.
So nothing happened at that house then?
No, nothing. We moved back to Sumner into the apartment at Salmon Creek when I was in 3rd grade. Yeah, I had to in 3rd grade because it was right after Hank and Mom split up. And I was over at my aunt's house one night, staying the night over there because we were playing video games. She had a Nintendo and all that. And woke up in the middle of the night hearing glass breaking. Look out in the kitchen, and there's dishes flying all over the place, smashing into the walls, the whole 9 yards. We all run for the front door, and there's glasses and plates and silverware and everything else flying at us. We're dodging it as we're headed for the front door. We get out the door, and we hear something shatter against the door as we pull it closed behind us. And then everything went absolutely silent. We crack the door open and look back inside, and there's absolutely no mess.
Wow.
We never did figure out what had happened exactly. I mean, there's no way that 5 people would have the same hallucination, but that's one idea that had been suggested.
And you continued to have experiences, even the black-eyed children you saw again, correct?
I've seen them 5 or 6 times throughout my life.
Wow.
Yeah, including one here in East Texas.
But there were things that happened before you saw them again, including this poltergeist activity that kind of was erased and everyone in the house saw it.
Yeah, all of us saw it, and when we opened the door, we expected to find a huge mess, and there was nothing. Everything was exactly where it was supposed to be.
Do you believe that a person is a catalyst? Like, these activities might be happening around us constantly, but it requires a catalyst for people to see it. Do you believe that you may be the catalyst in this situation? In other words, you're the conduit for this stuff, even though this stuff is probably happening everywhere, multi-dimensions. We'll get into like what you think it is or what you feel that you know it is. But do you think that you may have been the catalyst for people seeing these things?
I actually have wondered that myself on several occasions, and I think as I learned and grew, I kind of faded away from that, for lack of a better way to put it. Not so much being the catalyst, but I can still feel it going on around me. Even if there's not anything for anybody else to see, I can still feel the energies around me.
So after the poltergeist type incident that was experienced by your family, what happened next?
Oh, let's see. I think I was about 12 or so. I'm not 100% sure. We moved to Aberdeen and we're living in the big blue house. And I heard something scratching around inside the crawl space in my bedroom. And when I opened it up to see what was going on, what was scratching in there, against my mom's orders, of course, She assumed it was a rat or something. I open it up and I could see like handprints, like somebody had been kneeling down and had their hands flat on the floor in the dust. And they were adult-sized hands. But there was nobody in the crawl space anywhere that I could find. Just those 2 handprints. In that same house, my mom fell down the stairs. And she said that she felt something underneath her as right before the first impact, like a cushion of air underneath her.
So it wasn't something that pushed her, it was something that was
trying to catch her.
Right. Wow. Did you ever have, during that time, did you have elaborate nightmares or elaborate dreams?
I've had elaborate dreams and nightmares most of my life.
And is it associative to a lot of the things you've experienced? I mean, I'm sure you had nightmares that first time you were dragged across the room. Did you even go back to the bedroom the next night?
I did.
Okay.
But only because my stepdad was a real jerk about it.
Were you able to keep the light on?
I kept the light on, and I kept the bathroom for the house. You had to go through my room to get to it. So I kept the bathroom light on and my bedroom light on all night, regardless of how much he complained about the power bill.
Even though there's years in between, you're having experiences. You're seeing things in places. You're very perceptive, sensitive to these energies, and you eventually experience the black-eyed children again.
Yeah, I've seen them a few times. I think the next time I actually saw them, I was in Rawlins. Yeah, I was in Rawlins the first time I saw them. They were walking across a park, and our paths like literally intersected. And it was just, I got this really cold chill down my back, and I turned and looked at them, and they were both completely black-eyed staring at me. It really wigged me out because they literally stopped and stared at me.
What do you think they are? I mean, we'll get further into it because I want to hear more stories about your encounters with them. But what were you thinking at that time? What they were at that time? Not now, but then. This is the second time you've seen these things. What are they?
I thought they might have been some kind of a warning sign of something to come. Was kind of the feeling I got, but nothing really ever followed the encounters that would warrant something like that. At least not to me personally.
Did anything major happen in the world after the first or second encounter with these kids?
Come to think of it, the first encounter may well have been around the Columbia explosion, the space shuttle that blew up.
Right.
It might have been right around that time. I'm not 100% sure, but it may well have been. I know I saw them also about a week before 9/11.
And I know I've read some stories traditionally. People have seen them the way you have. Also, they've knocked on people's doors. Were you ever in a situation where you were home alone or home with family or your wife or girlfriend or whoever, and they knocked on the door?
Not exactly, but I was out camping with my girlfriend one time and they scratched on the tent door.
And so you're there, you're in a tent, and it was definitely a person that scratched on the tent door. Did you unzip it? Did you look out and see them?
I unzipped it enough to be able to see outside. And my girlfriend at the time looked out the same hole that I did. And she said, "Oh, they're just little kids. Let them come in. They're probably cold." I'm going, no. Did you not look at their faces? She said, "They're just kids. How harmful can they be?" I said, we're not inviting them in this tent, period. If they're cold, they can sit out there by the campfire.
And was it a campground where there were, other people in the area at that time?
Well, yeah, but the campsites were spaced out far enough that you had relative privacy as well.
Sure. It's just that's what would make sense, that you assume, or at least your girlfriend at the time was assuming, hey, these are kids maybe from a neighboring camp.
Right.
And so they're scratching on the tent. You know exactly what they are because you've seen them before. Did you explain to your girlfriend at the time what these things are?
I pointed out to her that I've seen them before and they usually make me quite uncomfortable. And I pointed out that she needed to look at their faces and she'd see what I was talking about. Their eyes were completely black. Once she realized that, she went into full-on panic mode. It took everything I had to just keep her in the tent.
Wow. And did they return that night?
Not that I'm aware of, but there were noises around the tent all night. That could have been animals or anything.
What were you hearing around the tent?
Like footsteps and crunching leaves and that kind of thing. It could have been anything. It could have been somebody walking around the tent. It could have been them hanging around. It could have been animals. It could have been anything. But once we actually tried to go to sleep, I didn't look outside again.
Are there any reports of the kids hurting anyone, causing a problem? I mean, there's, obviously these stories are really scary and there are people that swear by them, including yourself. But were there any horrible consequences? Did the kids ever make it inside someone's house? Was someone found dead after a report?
I've heard stories of such, but I've never seen any confirmation of it.
Allie Bennett is a gifted psychic and offers her help and counsel to the living in need of comfort and answers. But it's when the dead come visiting uninvited that keeps her from opening mysterious doorways.
So the other story that I have was back at the Hell House, is what I'll call it. We were all getting ready to go to bed, and I remember going upstairs and running a bath because I was going to take a bath, and I got in the bathtub. I was probably like 15 maybe, and I had always been very afraid of that bathroom because it just didn't feel right. And so when any of us would shower or take a bath in there, we always had somebody else with us in case something happened. And my sister couldn't be in there because she had to go to bed for school, and I told my dad I'd be fine. And he was like, okay, well, scream or something if you need me. And I said I'd be fine. So I get in the water, and not even minutes after that, I felt like something put its hand around my throat and pushed me down underneath of the bath water. And I couldn't scream for my dad because I was under the water, but I was banging on the side of the bathtub, and my dad ran in and was trying to lift me out of the water and literally couldn't move me. And my dad's a very strong man. Like, he's done construction his whole life, so there would have been no reason why he couldn't have been able to move me. And I remember being pulled out of whatever happened, and whatever touched me had left the room because my dad was screaming at it to stop, and just looking at my dad and him looking at me. And I'm like, it's not going to stop until it kills one of us. And I think about that day every day as well. It's just crazy.
And, a lot of people, when they hear these stories, the only thing they can associate with are horror films.
Exactly.
Yeah. But this is real life. Now, okay, and if this can be defined in words, because it's difficult, and I know, like, I'm always exploring this just as somebody who writes fiction and is exploring these subjects. I'm getting ready to make a horror film myself, and I'm always trying to find that metaphysical space that is the difference between something supernatural that really happens and something that's supernatural that's portrayed in film. If you could articulate that, what is the difference?
Rather than magic, there's energy. So I think that, in a lot of like different TV shows and movies with spirits and demons and whatever else, there's always some sort of, magical touch to it. But where I think the difference is we don't have magic, we have energy, which is very similar. It just has a different name. Because our energy exists, it's able to transform, it's able to do all kinds of crazy things. And that's what I think the difference is. If instead of painting the picture with magic is what fixes everything or gives something negative power. It's just their energy. And energy can't be destroyed, but it can be transformed, just like when people do spells in movies and they have to do it in a particular way to, undo whatever they did. It's the same kind of thing with energy work, where you have to do things a certain way. Everything's intention based. And as, human beings and existing here with, an infinite purpose, our energy is very sacred and it's very special. And of course, negative things want a piece of that because they want a piece of that power, just like in movies where, there's a person that has like a magic amulet and something negative wants to steal it away from them because it's powerful. But we are what's powerful. We don't need, the amulets or the magic. It's just us and our energy that makes it different.
So when a person is feeling this, the energy is transferred, and let's say, and again, I don't want you to sit and relive this, but I want to understand in ways that we haven't really discussed before. Many people don't discuss it this way. And so we go back to that place where you were in the tub and you're attacked. Physiologically, or at least psychologically, you start to feel heavy. You start to feel an immense amount of fear. Perhaps you get dizzy. Do you feel physical forces pushing you in, or is it almost like you lose consciousness?
So when it first started, I remember just feeling the same kind of pressure as it would have been if something physically would have had its hand on my throat. So it was like the same force, same pressure, just the hand wasn't there, but it felt like a hand was there. And then I remember another hand either on my head or my face or something that just pushed me backwards. But I didn't see the hands. I just felt the same kind of pressure as it would have been, if a grown-up would have had both of their hands on me at the time, pushing me underneath the water as hard as they could have. And when I went into the water, I was trying to see whatever was there, because I knew if I could see it, then I could get rid of it, because if I knew what it was, it'd be easier to get rid of it. And it would never show me what it was, because if it would have, I would have known, and it didn't want me to know. So I just felt this just darkness, and it's just the kind of evil where it makes your stomach hurt. And I just remember vividly that it just wanted to kill me. That was the only kind of impression or anything I got from it, was it wanted me to die. And I still don't know why. I still don't know whatever became of whatever it is, but I think about it all the time.
Welcome back to Off to the Witch. I'm your host, Christopher Garateno, and I want to thank you for joining me tonight. You can find the extended versions of each of this evening's stories by exploring our catalog. We truly are living in the Twilight Zone, and it's how we learn, understand, and evolve that will determine our own strength for wherever it takes us in the future. Until next time.